Spoke just a bit ago to Hawaiian Congresswoman and Bernie Sanders supporter Tulsi Gabbard. Here's that conversation here. First, let's get your thoughts off of Sanders' win last night there in Michigan.
Well, it was incredible to see how the people of Michigan really stood up and let their voices be heard. A lot of folks were saying that that was a race in Michigan that Sanders just could not win. But I think it really shows the power of our democracy and the power of people's voices when they are moved by some of these issues that are so important to all of us to go out and take action. And so we're very pleased with the outcome of that race last night.
Congresswoman, you were a member of the DNC committee and you recently resigned and endorsed Sanders. Why now? And why did you leave?
As vice chair of the DNC, all DNC officers are supposed to remain neutral in our Democratic primaries, obviously including our presidential primary. And I just got to a point where as a soldier, as a war veteran, I was so frustrated that the most important issue, in my view, the question of war and peace and what qualities we're looking for in our next commander-in-chief were simply not being addressed. I felt that I could no longer stand on the sidelines, and I needed to get in and to speak out, not only for myself. I saw the cost of war firsthand during my first deployment, which was to Iraq. I worked in a medical unit, but for all of my brothers and sisters and for the American people, to point out the differences between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton on this issue of war and peace, on which candidate I feel would take us down a path towards peace, as opposed to Hillary Clinton, who has shown through her record and her current positions that she will continue to take us down this road of interventionist regime change wars that have cost us far too much.
But Congresswoman, there is a large delegate deficit in place. Clinton obviously has a massive lead when it comes to delegates. Sanders, it could possibly be impossible for him not to catch up, and you still chose to endorse him. Is that good for the party?
Well, because there are many, many states and many people across the country who have yet to cast their votes. And while I know many political pundits like to say that this is impossible, it's not over until it's over. And I have faith in our democracy. And Senator Sanders is promising to carry his message and to bring this choice and allow the American people to choose in this Democratic primary who they would like to see go forward and represent them in the general election.
What about any retaliation? The Clintons have had a well-oiled machine in Washington for years. Do you fear any retribution from the Clintons? And what's your relationship been like with it?
Well, I was heavily warned by people who care about me to not endorse Senator Sanders because of that fear of retaliation. And look, that fear is something that exists in a lot of folks that I've heard from. There is far too much at stake here to stand on the sideline and let politics get in the way of what's real. And what's real is war and the cost of war. I've seen and felt that cost firsthand through my service and my deployments to the Middle East. And I cannot stand on the sidelines and do nothing when we have a clear choice that many people are not informed about. There are very stark differences between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that people know what those differences are so they can at least make an educated and informed decision.
Critics say Sanders is weak when it comes to foreign policy. Hillary Clinton clearly has experience since she was former Secretary of State. Could he or is he ready to become a commander-in-chief?
I'm glad you asked that question, Demarco, because it's important for the American people, for us to make a distinction between experience and judgment. And I'll tell you as a soldier, what I look for as I'm examining who should be our next commander-in-chief is someone who exercises good judgment, someone who has foresight, and someone who has this military mindset, which means you take a look at a specific military course of action and you analyze it carefully to really look at what will the consequences of that course of action be? How will our enemies react to that? What will our reaction to that be? And go through this process so we know exactly how things are likely to play out before that action is taken. And I know through my conversations with Senator Sanders and through his record that he does have that good judgment to make sure that we are no longer spending our precious resources and lives in these interventionist regime change wars, and instead use those resources to nation build and invest in our communities right here at home.
And Congresswoman, one final question for you. In the event that Sanders is not the nominee, will you throw your support behind Hillary Clinton? And do you think his supporters will follow?
Well, Demarco, we'll cross that bridge if and when we get there. I and a lot of others are going to do everything that we can to make sure that Senator Sanders is our Democratic nominee that we're going to take through the general election and beyond.
All right, you have spoken. Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, thank you so much.